Yesterday evening, the Supreme Court issued another ruling allowing a racist gerrymander to move forward, and this time in Alabama. Now, why do I say it's a racist gerrymander? Literally, a lower court ruled that it was an illegal racist gerrymander, and they blocked the Alabama state legislators from moving forward with these new racist maps. So, Bloomberger Law Report, the U.S. Supreme Court lifted an order that blocked Alabama from using a congressional map deemed to be an illegal racial gerrymander. Literally, justices clear a path for Alabama GOP to use new voter map. They are literally saying, we don't like how black people vote, so we gonna make their vote less powerful. We gonna dilute their vote. And I'm not surprised because Trump is desperate to rig the midterms. I mean, he's unpopular as fuck. I just seen a new report from the Washington Post saying Trump disapproval reaches new high. They looked at polls from the Washington Post, ABC, and an Ipsos poll. His disapproval rating on the economy is about 70% now. That's unheard of. With numbers like that, you gotta be worried about being impeached. And even Trump said so himself.
You gotta win the midterms. Because if we don't win the midterms, it's just gonna be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
But instead of trying to win people over and trying to get more votes, he resorted to changing the maps or gerrymandering. And that effort got supercharged after the recent U.S. Supreme Court decision out of Louisiana, and again late yesterday with the Alabama Supreme Court decision. While at the same time, the Virginia Supreme Court just ruled against a redistricting effort that would have potentially helped the Democrats. So let's talk about what's actually happening. How is this redistricting working, and what do Democrats need to do to move against this? Before we get too far, I want to pause right there and ask everybody to subscribe to Politics with Steve on YouTube and also sign up for my email list. Link is below. Those are the best ways to stay in the loop on all things Politics with Steve. Now let's get back to it. All right, so before we get into too much gerrymandering and redistricting and what people talking about when they say, they're stripping away minority rights, minority voting rights and stuff like that, I want to discuss the fact that the elections in the United States is already rigged in favor of the Republicans. I mean, the president is elected using the electoral college system. We should have been got rid of that. The system is terrible and it literally makes no sense. For example, California has 39 million people. And if you win the majority of votes in that state, you get 54 electoral college votes on your way to 270, right? But if you lose California and win a combination of small states like Wyoming, Vermont, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Delaware, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine, Hawaii, Idaho, West Virginia, Nebraska, New Mexico, you'll get around 56 electoral college votes. But that's only about 12 to 13 million people. So you got 39 million people in California, which, by the way, if it was its own country, it would have a top 5 economy in the world. Their vote is worth less than 12 to 13 million people from states that provide much less economic value to the United States, much less tax revenue to the United States than California. How does that even make sense? With the current setup of the Electoral College, one vote from a citizen from Wyoming is worth 3 times more than a California resident. That literally makes no sense. Now on to the U.S. Senate. To control the Senate, you need more than half of the members. So it's 100 members, you need 51. Unless your party controls the presidency, then you can have 50 and then the vice president casts a tie-breaking vote in all things involving the Senate. So you'll still technically be in the majority. Here's the thing. Every state has 2 U.S. senators to represent them. Even though North Dakota only has about 780,000 people, South Dakota only has about 925,000 people. For reference, if you combine both North and South Dakota, you have about 1.75 million people. But the city of LA alone got 3.9 million people. That's more than double the total of both of those states combined just in one city in California. Why does it make sense that those 2 states have 4 senators when California only has 2? They only do that so that Republicans can have a chance. I mean, honestly, you could combine those 2 states. And now to the main subject, the U.S. House of Representatives. Those rules are also rigged to help Republicans. So we have 435 U.S. House seats. To have the majority, you need 218 seats. Each state has a certain amount of seats relative to like their size, and then they break these seats out into districts. Now, these districts is where all the funny business is happening. It's where all the gerrymandering and redistricting. Now, typically, redistricting is done every 10 years when the US does a census. They send out these surveys to understand how many people live in what state. Now, the idea is that these districts should be split up in a way that best represent people's interests, right? Rural area with farmland may have different priorities than an urban area with, a corporation dominated economy. So the same structure that the House, Senate, and President is also on a state level. You have a House, Senate, and then a governor instead of the president. Now, the state legislators is who actually draw the maps for federal election. So when we looking at federal elections and the US House seats on a federal level, all of that's being done by the state government. Let's talk about how they doing this. First of all, it's important to note it's two major types of gerrymandering. You have cracking and you have packing. Cracking is what we seen last week after the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Louisiana. Lawmakers in the state of Tennessee immediately moved to redistrict. They used a method called cracking. We're going to take a look at a map of Tennessee, and I'm going to show y'all exactly what that looked like. Now, based on their population size, Tennessee got 9 U.S. House seats. All right, so we got a map of Tennessee. This is the old map, so this is what was used in 2024. We see we got 9 districts in Tennessee. One, and all the way to the left is District 9. Now, don't be confused by the fact that District 9 is smaller in area because population-wise, it's either the same size or bigger than the rest of the districts. With that being said, we see Memphis is blue, they vote blue, and they typically send a Democrat to Congress from the state of Memphis. But with the new maps the state is using in Tennessee, it's going to look like this in the 2026 election. So basically, this is cracking. They broke the district up into 3. Look at how the Memphis area now has District 5. Look at where District 5 starts and ends all the way in Memphis. Those people probably share very few common interests with the people that's in Memphis. But then you have also broken up into District 8. I mean, that makes no sense. And then you have District 9. So literally, you just splitting apart that vote. Together, that vote is too powerful. Let me put that vote and dilute it with all these people. And look at how big District 5 is. The city of Memphis is 63% black, and now they got no representation. Another type of gerrymandering is packing. And for example of this, we're going to look at what just happened in Louisiana. They got 6 U.S. House districts, and 1/3 of their population is black. So proportionally, it should be 2 majority black districts, right? But what they did is they packed all of the Democratic voters and the black voters into just one district. That's how it looked in 2024. And this is how it's going to look now. Again, Democrats are packed into this district. The rest of them got diluted, and now they only have 1 seat. So as a result of the most corrupt and right-wing Supreme Court probably in the history of the United States, they allow Louisiana to combine 2 districts into 1, and now it's only 1 seat. We just took a look at it. Again, when you look at these maps, you see a lot of red, just like when you look at the United States, but it's just because it's just a lot of rural land. It's not a lot of people. It's not a lot of voters. It's just land. And that's the same whenever you look at any of these states, right? Now, gerrymandering using race is unconstitutional. It was protected by Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, but this corrupt Supreme Court just gutted that. So now states no longer got to draw districts with majority-minority districts. It's still on the books as a law, but it's basically unenforceable because you got to prove lawmakers did it with racial intent. That's basically impossible unless they tell you. And the thing about it, I call the Supreme Court corrupt because literally Samuel Alito, a Supreme Court justice, cited faulty data when he made this decision. I just seen an article from the New Republic saying Samuel Alito cited fudge data in his ruling gutting Voting Rights Act. That's insane. Whenever there's a decision by the Supreme Court that's not unanimous, you have a dissenting opinion. And it's not, that important because the majority opinion is what actually becomes the law, but The dissenting opinion is important because we get a chance to understand that, first of all, not all these people agree with them. And then the second of all, it gives a different perspective. So, with that being said, I'm going to give y'all a little bit of Justice Kagan dissent. She said, under the court's new view of Section 2, a state can, without legal consequences, systematically dilute minority citizens' voting power. Of course, the majority does not announce today's holding that way, which is absolutely correct. Like, first of all, they're never going to say that that's what's actually happening, but they're able to do it as long as they don't say it. As long as they don't say it, you can't really know their intent. There's no legal repercussions for it. And to build on that, yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Alabama legislators being able to gerrymander a black district in Alabama, despite a lower court finding the state intentionally diluted black voting power. So the AP put out a report saying the Supreme Court lifts the mandate for Alabama to use a U.S. House map with 2 minority districts. So the mandate that was lifted is the lower court decision that I was telling y'all about, where they found that the state was intentionally diluting the black voting power. Now they able to ignore that basically because of this new Supreme Court decision. Now, this type of gerrymandering is happening all through the South and any other states where Republicans control the state house, the state senate, and the governor. They literally redrawing maps. I just got a notification while I was recording this video that Missouri is now gerrymandering A maps to benefit Republicans. Florida has a law specifically banning this type of gerrymandering, and they did it anyway. But in Florida, the state Supreme Court is Republicans, as well as the House, Senate, and the governor. So they just letting anything go. Now, this redistricting war started when Trump told the governor of Texas to gerrymander the hell out of Texas to give Republicans 5 more seats. And since then, they done netted about 15, 16 seats just by changing maps. No new votes, no new support, just changing maps. They netted about 15, 16 new seats. California immediately responded and drew new maps that eliminated 5 Republican held seats. Now, instead of just imposing these new maps on residents of California, the governor of California said, hey, we a democracy. The United States is a democracy, and so is the state of California. So they issued a statewide vote called Proposition 50 on whether or not the citizens of California want to actually pass a redistricting reform. And guess what? It passed. So they went ahead and redistricted the state of California, which added, projected 5 more Democratic seats. And then Virginia did the exact same thing. They went to their citizens. They said, hey, we want to put this redistricting effort on the ballot. We want the citizens to tell us if they want us to redistrict. The citizens of Virginia said, yeah, redistrict. They wanted the state of Virginia to counter what the Republicans are doing all throughout the country. The Supreme Court in Virginia, the state Supreme Court, that is controlled by Republicans as well, said no. They said, we don't care what the citizens want. We gonna rule against what the citizens specifically said they wanted. And so yesterday, Virginia appealed this decision to the right-wing U.S. Supreme Court that I have no faith in, that started this whole redistricting stuff. So again, I don't think that that's going to go anywhere, but there are options. I want Democrats in Virginia and all around the country to do whatever it takes to counter these Republican attempts to steal the election by gerrymandering. I think they need to be a lot more aggressive. What needs to happen is, and I've been seeing people talk about this all on the internet, but Virginia can sign a law that bans Supreme Court or their state Supreme Court justices from being above a certain age, and that would immediately force all of these Supreme Court justices to retire in the state of Virginia. They can fill that with new Supreme Court justices that will allow the Virginia legislator to do what the people is specifically asking to do. I mean, the people said yes. The people said that this is what they want Virginia to do. Again, in the U.S., the election rules are already tilted to help Republicans, and they still got to cheat. All Democratic controlled states that got a state house, state senate, and a governor need to do everything they can to wipe out as many Republican seats as possible. And look, all of this could have been avoided. All you need is a nonpartisan, independent redistricting commission. The Democrats voted in favor of that, but guess what? The Republicans was opposed to it. And by the way, all of this redistricting that we seeing is unheard of. Why are they even doing redistricting in the middle of the last census was done in 2020? We're not supposed to do redistricting or anything like that until at least 2030. They so desperate to cheat in this election in 2026 that they doing mid-decade redistricting. I mean, they doing anything to get out of this midterms ass whooping. But they understand winning the House of Representatives is very important. I mean, legislation start with the House of Representatives. If the Democrats win the House, they'll have the ability to reverse course, get us back the Affordable Care Act subsidies, launch investigations into all of the crimes that the Trump administration is committing, as well as the bad policies. And by the way, we heard Trump talk about impeachment. Impeachment starts in the House of Representatives. So basically, if the Republicans lose the House, Donald Trump knows that, he'll just be another angry old guy yelling at people, but that'll be the extent of his power. I mean, you can't do anything as the president without Congress. He knows that. He knows he's just going to be another delusional old man on social media. So it's very important that the Democrats do everything they can to wipe out these fraudulent gains that the Republicans got just from, gerrymandering districts.